Hey guys, I've been away from the channel for a little bit, and as I mentioned a couple of months ago, I'm busy working on an album which is coming along very well. Thanks for asking. It's almost done. But I wanted to this is something I've been thinking about lately because I've been listening to the album So a little bit, and so I wanted to talk about Peter Gabriel's So today, maybe talk about the songs, talk a little bit about the stats. And some of my thoughts on this record, which I think is phenomenal. It's such an incredible record. And why are we talking about this? This is a Phil Collins channel, right? Well, it's everything Phil Collins. So that allows us to do stuff like Peter Gabriel, of course. It's connected, right? Everything. So I pretty much I'm not hugely familiar with Peter's work. But I get more and more familiar as the time goes on. So correct me if I'm wrong, but as I kind of discover, his earlier works, and I was a big fan of I.O., and I'm a huge fan of So, S-O, if we can call it that, just so it rhymes with I.O. But correct me if I'm wrong. Would you say that like the first four albums, like Peter Gabriel, Car, Scratch, Melt, Security, would you say that those are part of a series, and then So, Us, Up, and I.O. are part of a series? You know what I mean? Because I feel like it's at the So mark where the music becomes more digital, more produced and hi-fi. I feel like there's more like of the rock and roll sensibilities in the other stuff. To me, it sounds more like the Lamb, a lot of the first four records. Of course, there's like softer moments, but he really becomes super ambient and pop, of course, accessible, of course, but just these like beautiful, lush soundscapes that I hear on Us. There is kind of like here's what I love about So all the way up to I.O. is this like mid-tempo. It reminds me of Phil Collins in a way, like some of Phil's best work, like You'll Be in My Heart and Every Day. And do you remember some of the kind of like the chill stuff that just kind of grooves for a bit? Take Me Home. There's stuff on So like Mercy Street and Don't Give Up that remind me a lot of like This Is Home from his new album. They remind me a little bit of maybe Four Kinds of Horses. It remind me of Blood of Eden. These just mid-tempo songs with absolutely stunning melodies. So I feel like there was that shift with So, where he now is doing a different kind of sound that Peter becomes a little bit more synonymous for than the early stuff. So I'd love for you to tell me in the comments, educate me, because I'm a professional Phil Collins fan. I'm not a professional Peter fan. But I really love that about the later records. I love that about Us. I love that about, I'm not too familiar with Up, although I do remember when it came out. I listened to it I think it even leaked back in those leaking days of MP3s. Anyway, I remember listening to it a little bit then. I should dig into it. But it's what I really love about I.O. It's really, really love about So. It's a new sound. It's new artwork too, right? It's a little bit more in your face. I think there are versions of it where the word So is on the cover with Peter Gabriel, his name, which is unique and new. One of the cool things about, I think it was the new record label he was on, is it Virgin that I'm thinking of, that they said that, obviously he had always had his album covers very, very minimal and didn't give them an album title. It was just the same font of his name. And what was really interesting this time was he had said that he named the album So because they were forcing him to put the album title, to give it an album title, and to put it on the album cover. And so he wanted to be able to do something as big as possible and kind of bold as possible. So he wanted like a short name. I don't know if that's true. I think that is kind of cool though. And there is like the crooked letters, typeface. But new album cover, it's not an altered photo. It's not really a unique photo. It's just like a publicity shot of Pete. You know what I love about So is it's an album it's an album from the 80s, but it's not an 80s sound. Now you could say Big Time is, and Sledgehammer sort of is, in the vein of like Invisible Touch. I think No Jacket Required is an 80s sound. I think Invisible Touch in certain ways is an 80s sound, but I don't think So is an 80s sounding record. I mean, if you put on In Your Eyes or Don't Give Up or Mercy Street, you like, for someone who wasn't familiar with the record, I don't think they would immediately guess that this was 80s, but it's certainly not those like big brashy synths, those like Thriller style distorted electric guitars that we hear Daryl do on No Jacket. We don't have all of those like big squishy Linn drums and 808s and 909s. I'm not sure I mentioned this yet. We're going to go track by track in this review. But my favorite song on the album is Mercy Street. And it's almost my favorite Peter Gabriel song had it not be for Salisbury Hill. I really like Salisbury Hill. Mercy Street is so beautiful. You know, when I first heard it, and we're going to do a review one day of Shaking the Tree, that greatest hits album, because I have such a warm spot in my heart for that album, which is not an album. It's a greatest hits. But, you know, for a lot of bands, for a lot of people, they kind of come into an artist through greatest hits. And so that album, that's kind of how I discovered Peter back in the mid 90s. Not discovered Peter. I knew he was connected to Phil in a way, but I wasn't totally sure as a young person. But anyway, there was a movie called The Bone Collector. Do you guys remember this movie? I think it was Angelina Jolie and Denzel Washington. As a kid, I don't remember if this movie holds up. It's a murder mystery. But as a kid, it was a great movie. I loved watching it. It was creepy. Anyway, when the credits roll, it's Mercy Street. And I was just like, man, this song is so cool. And this was in the 90s. There was no Shazam. I couldn't hold up my phone and be like, what song is that? But anyway, I loved it. That's a really, really, really great song. And still, to this day, Mercy Street, I just absolutely adore that tune. Okay, before we go track by track, let's go through the stats. So this is the 5th studio album, as we've discussed. It was released on May 19th, 1986. So we're coming up on, as the time of recording this, we're coming up on, it'll be 30 years pretty soon. Is that right? 40 years. Oh my gosh, I am so old. The 40th anniversary of So is in 2 years. I wonder if they'll do something special. If he's sold, I think he's sold the rights. Has he sold the rights to his solo? No, he hasn't. But if he does, they'll probably do a massive box set for this or whatever. Produced by Daniel Lanois, who's from my hometown here in Canada. It came after Birdie. 1986, it was recorded February to December of 1985. That's a long time. That's 10 months. The CD version is longer. There's like we'll talk about that. The singles for the album, the first single released in April was Sledgehammer, a month before the album came out. In Your Eyes is the second single. In August, Don't Give Up. In October, Big Time. In March, and Red Rain was the last single in July, a full like a year and 2 months after. You know, even though like I'm sure that like Rolling Stone has included this, they included on their greatest albums of all time, 500 albums of all time. I feel like this is still an underrated album, not in the Genesis community, but I feel like this is an underrated album in the music community as a whole. I just think that like, you know, there's big classic albums like Graceland that I feel like, who else? Well, even Face Value, I think, would get more attention because of In the Air Tonight than this album. And I think it's maybe because there's no one massive hit. Sledgehammer was a massive hit, but not like at the level of In the Air Tonight. I mean, iconic wise. It went to number 1, yes. Sledgehammer is big. In Your Eyes is big. Like, there are big songs, but I think because the album is so cohesive, the album is so... no one song trumps the other songs or dwarfs anything. I mean, you could say that about Sledgehammer, but I don't think so. I don't feel like Sledgehammer stands out from the album as much as Invisible Touch stands out from Invisible Touch. So I think that's what really makes... But yeah, I still think it's a little bit underrated. I don't know. My friends don't talk about it. You know what I mean? There's like these classic records. When a young person gets a turntable and wants to go and collect the classic records, what are they going to get? They're going to get like maybe Dark Side of the Moon. They're maybe going to get the Pet Sounds, maybe Abbey Road or the White Album or Sgt. Pepper. They're going to get, maybe they'll get Selling England, or Duke. Maybe they'll get Songs in the Key of Life. Of course, there's all these modern, OK Computer and Yankee Hotel Foxtrot and modern indie rock records that they would get. But if they're getting the classics, they're getting Thriller, they're getting Graceland. I just feel like, I don't know if everyone is grabbing So, and I just think So is a record that everyone should have. Before we get into the track by track, I want to say something bold. Like, I honestly feel, I love this album so much. I feel like it's a perfect album. I really, really do. There's one song on here that kind of irks me a little bit. Its placement irks me, anyway, we'll talk about it in a second. But really, I think, and again, I don't, for personal reasons, I don't put this above any Phil Collins album, or even any Genesis record, because those are just at a different level for me. But I think could still be the best solo album. Only because if you're comparing it to Face Value, which isn't fair because this is his 5th record, whereas Face Value was Phil's 1st record. But I think that if you're comparing it to that, like Face Value is more mixtape, more like I'm just trying out a few things. So is this perfectly cohesive album. Maybe it would compete with, maybe The Geese and the Ghost could compete with it for one of the best solo albums, or Small Creeps. But like, I just think So is a perfect album. I think it is so minimal, yet so maximal. Is that a word? Anyway, I love it. I love it so much. Production, I just love it. Red Rain, great track, great opener. Not an overly successful single. It's not one we know that everybody knows so well. This song would have like more of that 80s sensibilities. But you know what? It's like, it's got this Genesis sound in that it's like, it could fit on We Can't Dance or Invisible Touch. It's dark in the verses, bright and exciting and epic and anthemic in the choruses. Love it. What do you think about Red Rain? I love it. Great opener. Sledgehammer, I think, is one of the greatest pop songs of our time. And I love the story of it replacing Invisible Touch. There are so many similarities, right? It is new wavy. It is artsy. It's different, It's very adventurous in a way. But yeah, Sledgehammer holds up. Harry Styles did it recently. It's a euphemism. I think it's really, really cool. The flutes too, like if that's probably a synth, right? Or the what was it called? That Starlight or the Fairlight? Anyway, the percussion, the drums and stuff. It is kind of the bass line. That's 80s sound. This would be one of the biggest, this and Big Time would be one of the biggest 80s sounds of the album. But when you throw in the flutes, you throw in the percussion, you throw in things that are just so Peter Gabriel, or Peter Gabriel from So onwards, that's where it separates itself from more just like that cheesy 80s sound. Great horns too. Great horns in this song. Kate Bush and Don't Give Up. This would be like a really hard album to rank the songs. Mercy Street is my favorite. It's kind of a deep cut because I don't think it was a single. Although it was on Shaking the Tree. Why was it on Shaking the Tree if it wasn't a single? And actually, it's not on the vinyl, or Red Rain isn't on the vinyl. That was kind of a weird compilation. We have to talk about that. Don't Give Up is really great. I don't really have much to say about it. I think my favorite thing is the outro, when the percussion gets a little bit more aggressive. And then it's like, play this side by side, play that outro with This Is Home, like it's so similar. It's just these the pairing. I'm doing this now on the record I'm working on, where I'm pairing congas, real congas and udus with drum machines. And then hitting on the back of an acoustic guitar, because then the mind is like, what am I hearing? I'm just hearing this like beautiful train of percussion that's moving the song along. Peter is phenomenal at that. Phil is great at that too, especially on the Tarzan stuff. and the marriage of real drums and drum machines on But Seriously. It's what I love so much about those guys and some of the sounds that they created from a percussion standpoint. I want to talk about That Voice Again. I think that voice again might be I think this song might be the most underrated song on the record, perhaps aside from the very last track that people would maybe put as their least favorite. I don't know. But people maybe would put this song as their least, like, if you were ranking the songs, I mean, what would you do? I mean, maybe you guys would put Sledgehammer and Big Time low on your list because they're hits. But That Voice Again is just such a great song. It is like 80s-y, 90s-y sounding. But when I was listening to this record recently, whenever I put it on, I'm always excited to hear Red Rain. I'm excited to hear Sledgehammer. I'm excited to hear Mercy Street because it's my favorite. In Your Eyes is unbelievable. I mean, this album just gets me excited. One of the things about doing these album reviews is that when I talk about this, I kind of want to hurry up the video so I can go and listen to the album. So, you know what I mean? Because I'm just like talking myself into wanting to play the record. Anyhow, That Voice Again is just, I always forget about it because it wasn't a single, because it's not a big live song. When it comes on, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a banger. This is one of the best songs on the album. Percussion, the drums are insane on this. The synths and the keyboards are insane on this. And you know, just that hear that voice again. Oh man, it's just so good. It's so good. What do you guys think of this song? Where would you rank this song? I'm so curious. It's one of the most underrated Petey Gaby songs, and I'm just curious, where would you put this? Next song is Mercy Street. Well, hold on. Let's talk about this for 1 second here. We are going with this timeline here, this track listing, which messes things up a little bit because I believe, on the vinyl, I don't have the vinyl here. I'm not at home right now, so I don't have the vinyl here. But I believe that Mercy Street comes. Okay, let's talk about Mercy Street, then we'll talk about the track listing because it's different for vinyl purposes, I believe. I've said this before when I did my review of I.O. I've said this before when I've talked about Phil Collins songs. My favorite types of songs in the world, and some of the tracks I try to produce, is when you get a groove, you get like a really nice groove with percussion, drum machines, maybe real drums, and you blend all of those together, and they're just doing this beautiful little shuffle, this like, just not a shuffle, but like just a groove, right? Locked in, totally locked in. It could go on forever. I mean, it's like the drum beat of Take Me Home. If somebody were to play that, if I had tendonitis playing that drum beat for the rest of my life, I'd be okay with that. So if we're listening to this, and so when a song has like this great groove, and then there's like a pad, there's just like a big synth pad that's like lush and fills things out, and then everything else is just cherries on top. You know, it's just like there's a little guitar part here, or there's a background vocal here, a flute or a sax. I really want you to hear my new record if you like this type of style on Mercy Street. This is what I'm working on right now. But yeah, Mercy Street is one of those songs that could just play. It's kind of like it just hangs out here from a dynamic standpoint. It's not like it's whoa, 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 whoa. It's just kind of, really nice. And it reminds me of so much from I.O. I think if I listen to So and I go, wow, that reminds me of I.O. When I listen to I.O., I go, man, that sounds like So. Do you guys get that too? I think that's really cool. What is this song about? What is Mercy Street about? Anyway, I love it. My favorite song. Okay, so let's look at the track listing real quick. Okay, so on the vinyl, we have That Voice Again and side B. Then side 2 is In Your Eyes, Mercy Street, Big Time. We Do What We're Told. And then Excellent Birds, I don't think that's on the record that I have. Yeah. Okay, I'm reading here on Wikipedia. Excellent Birds did not appear on vinyl pressings until 2002. Okay, so the issue here, from what I understand, is In Your Eyes is a long song, and it is a big song. And this is a short record in the sense that it was 8 tracks, but all of the tracks are like high 4s, high 6s, like they're long songs. And so he's pushing the limits of one side of vinyl. I have to get the new pressings of this. That's on my to-do list. I bet you it's 2 discs. Is it 2 discs? Let me know. But I find that, anyway, so he did In Your Eyes is on vinyl, had to be on the start of side B because the grooves, you can fit, it's better for bassy songs, right? And so if he's pushing the limit, he wanted to have In Your Eyes as the closer to this album, which I agree, it makes for a great closer. But he couldn't do it. So once they had CDs and then, of course, digital, he was able to change the track listing, which is so funny. You know, that's so classic Peter. We talked about that recently, didn't we? When we were talking about the track listing of I.O., how it's different digitally and on CD than it is on vinyl. But not for the, I don't think for the same reasons. Anyway, so yeah, on my vinyl copy, it's In Your Eyes, or In Your Eyes starts on side B. What song are we now have to talk about? Are we talking about In Your Eyes? Great tune. I mean, absolutely fantastic. I mean, his vocals are in tip-top shape. It's got that kind of tribal African vibe happening. It's, you know, and of course that In Your Eyes. Oh man, I mean, is it his biggest song? Probably, next to Sledgehammer. It's fantastic. I don't hear it on the radio as much as I'd love to, like, you know, on like grocery store radio. But yeah, it's phenomenal. I absolutely love that song. Really long too, and it's big and thick. I can understand why it wouldn't fit on the end of the record. You know, it's so cool too because you have this pre-chorus. I reach up from the inside, oh, in your eyes. I don't know, great. I mean, one of those, you know, a great song is a song that has great instrumentation, has a great verse that you just absolutely can't wait to hear, but then also has a pre-chorus you can't wait to hear, and then a chorus you can't wait to hear, and then like a post-chorus, you know what I mean? So it's like, this is, for that reason, this is one of his best songs. I'm all over the place on the track listing, so I don't know where we're at now, but let's talk about Big Time. What I don't like about Big Time, especially on my vinyl copy, is that it comes after Mercy Street, I believe. Or does it come? It comes after Mercy Street digitally, and maybe it comes after. Yeah, I think it does on vinyl as well, which is one of the reasons I hate it. I really don't like Big Time. This is a weird thing that doesn't make any sense, but for some reason I always associate this song, or it reminds me, it's like its sister song, its spirit animal song, is Big in Japan from Tom Waits. Do you know the album Mule Variations from Tom Waits? Probably came out, well, it would have come out in the 90s actually, late 90s actually, so like 10 years after this, I think. Great album. That whole album though is like, sounds a lot like Mercy Street. That whole album is just subdued and like rhythmic and ambient, you know, like a lot of this record. You got to hear Mule Variations if you haven't heard it. But the opening song is a song called Big in Japan, which is like Big Time, just brashy and like arrogant and loud and aggressive and really different from the rest of the album. I would give this album a 9.9 out of 10, and just Big Time stands out to me. Now, I think it would have played a really good role from a singles standpoint, because if you heard Sledgehammer on the radio and you're like, oh my gosh, I want more of that, and then you got this album, I could see maybe you'd be a little disappointed, maybe. But, and so Big Time would have satiated that. It's a sister song to Sledgehammer in a way. I don't like very much about Big Time. Now, it's not my least favorite song. It's not my least favorite Peter Gabriel song. It's my least favorite song on So. I don't dislike it except for just that jarring feeling. I think from a track listing standpoint, if they had put it closer to Sledgehammer, it would have felt, I feel like I'm starting to sink into this In Your Eyes, Mercy Street, this more slow meditative sound, and then Big Time hits me and drives me nuts. I love albums that kind of take a risk. I love albums that have a throwaway song, a song that is like instrumental or ambient or experimental or a transition song. And the last song, We Do What We're Told, is that. It's these beautiful sounds, these beautiful drum machines, this digital hi-fi sound that Peter is now doing for the first time and becoming synonymous for. You know, this isn't a song in a way. It's like a movement. It's like a soundtrack. Was it originally for a soundtrack? So for that reason, I love it. I adore it. I would put Big Time as my least favorite song. This is not my least favorite song. It's, I think it's really cool. It's just not a song. So it's like, it's not something I feel like I'm singing along to. It's so creepy and weird. A little bit earlier, Peter Gabriel. But I love it. Hey, let me real quick, before I let you go, let me rank these songs. And then I want you to do it. I want you to do in the comments, I want you to tell me what you think of this album, especially as Phil Collins fans and Genesis fans. I know I appreciate you letting me talk about this album. We're not going to do too much non-Phil stuff. We do have to do a Brand X review, and we'll talk more about Peter stuff later on, but I appreciate you letting me do this review because I love this album. Love it. If I'm ranking the songs, I'm going to go Mercy Street's my first favorite. Then I'm going to go In Your Eyes is my next one. Then I'm going to go That Voice Again. Ooh, crazy. And then I'm going to go Sledgehammer. Then I'm going to go Red Rain. Then I'm going to do What We're Told. And then, did I say Don't Give Up already? No, I think I have to say Don't Give Up. And then Big Time. That's 8. There you go. That's my ranking from favorite to least favorite. But they're all great. It's a great album. Let me know what you think. We'll get back to regular Phil Collins stuff real soon. Thanks for being patient with me. I miss you. I'm glad to see you. Come over to our Patreon, support the channel, and lots of great things coming up soon. Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button for exclusive videos, behind-the-scenes content, and to have your say on future topics before I film. Have a look at our Patreon page. Thanks for watching.